Welcome to the Damascus Road podcast. On the road to Damascus, Paul had a radical encounter with Jesus and his life was changed forever. That is what we hope and pray for here. Now, on to this week's episode.
So, if there was ever a difficult time relationally, I would guess that it's middle school for many of us, for a variety of different reasons. And my middle school journey was a bumpy one at the start. My family moved to a different part of town in 5th grade, so I ended up having to go to a totally different middle school than any of my elementary school friends. And I started off knowing no one at Castle Dome Middle School. But soon enough, I became friends with Elima, so another curly-haired girl with a difficult-to-pronounce last name. Mine is Kleinwachter, if you're wondering, and then hers is Renault. Her full name is actually Tatum Elima Kolikukuya Madrona Renault. She's Hawaiian. So we really bonded over that. So we became friends in Miss Bryan's homeroom class, but we started making these really silly comics together that we attempted to sell for some reason. We bonded over a shared hatred of integers in math class. We ate lunch together daily. We always tried to pick each other for partner assignments, and we became best friends over that school year. And after so much worry about starting off at a new place, I was delighted to have made such an excellent friend in Elima. Unfortunately, the summer before I started 7th grade, the neighborhood I lived in was redistricted, and I was told that I would have to go to yet another new middle school. This time, Ron Watson Middle School, which is not too far from the first one, but I couldn't drive, so it might as well have been on the other side of the planet. When I was heartbroken. When 7th grade started, I held out a little bit of hope that maybe I'll make as good of a friend just as quickly. But some of the girls I first tried to strike up a conversation with promptly told me that we don't like kids from Castle Dome. And that's very petty and middle schooly, and it was pretty demoralizing at the time. I can see my fellow Ron Watson kid nodding at that, yes. I thought I was just stuck being alone at my new school. I wasn't going to be able to find friends like I had the first time. But just a little ways in, I found I was less alone than I thought. My birthday is in September, which is relatively early in the school year, so before you really establish your friends. And I was able to invite Elima and some of my other Castle Dome friends, even as I struggled finding new friends at my current school. But I must have mentioned something about my birthday coming up at Ron Watson, because that day, a girl who I'd talked to just a few times in math class, Valerie, gave me a birthday present and wished me happy birthday. And she seemed to think this was just not a big deal, it's just what you do, but I was floored. She knew when my birthday was, she brought me a present. That was just an insane thing to do at the time. And I started talking with her more because clearly she wanted to be friends. And she started inviting me to these big group sleepovers at her house, and we watched movies and jumped on the trampoline until the wee hours in the morning. And it was at one of these sleepovers that I met Stephanie, who had also become one of my best friends. And we had so many silly inside jokes that I'll still find pictures or slips of paper that I've saved from that time with something completely random written on it. And while I don't remember what the jokes meant, I certainly remember that feeling of belonging and friendship. And I was very blessed to have struck friendship gold 2 years in a row. And when our neighborhood was redistricted again before my 8th grade year, my parents intervened so that I could stay at Ron Watson and not go to a third new middle school in 3 years, because that's just cruel. And even better, I was placed in an advanced math class that met early during the zero period at our local high school before busing us over to our respective middle schools. And both Castle Dome and Ron Watson kids were there, including Elima. So I got to see my two best friends at two different schools every day, and we all ended up at the same high school together, which sounds like a Disney movie, channel movie ending in retrospect. And to be clear, that ability to see each other in person was pretty darn important, because I did not have a cell phone or was allowed to text for most of middle school. Even when I did get a little brick phone for emergencies, I was under the impression that if I even opened up the texting feature on my phone, my parents would be charged thousands of dollars, and then I would be grounded for the rest of my natural existence. So I did not do that. If I wanted to talk to one of my friends, I had to ask my parents to call their house and hope that their parents would let them talk to me. When I found out that I would be changing schools after 6th grade, I called Elima's house phone on my mom's cell phone, waited for our moms to say, yeah, it's cool if they talk to each other, and then break the news. And I had no guarantees that we were going to be able to talk to each other regularly throughout that school year. Later on, Stephanie and I passed notes and letters between classes, and we spent countless hours at each other's houses. These friendships were built on regular in-person connection. And I'm still friends with both of them almost 20 years later. That's Stephanie at my baby shower, and Elima and I in each other's weddings over the years, which is pretty awesome. It is not good for us to be alone, and in seasons that I thought would be desperately lonely, God brought me wonderful friends that continue to be a part of my life now. And certainly technology makes up a much bigger part of our friendships now than it did 2 decades ago. Elima lives in Phoenix with her husband, and Stephanie is in Yuma, and all of us work and have busy lives. The ability to text or to FaceTime is huge for us. Elima and I will send paragraphs catching up with each other, and Steph and I follow what each other is reading on Goodreads and text about books frequently. And I'm grateful that I can get ultrasounds of Elima's new baby or share an old high school photo with Stephanie almost instantly using our phones. And the technology we have now means that we can remain relationally connected across physical distance and busy schedules. And that's certainly a good thing. And yet, I wonder just how strong those friendships would be now if we hadn't spent all that in-person time together first. Communication technology like smartphones and social media isn't bad on its own and can certainly help us to keep in touch, but it often fools us into thinking that it can do more than that. We settle for a text exchange when a face-to-face conversation is really what's needed, or for the quick hit of likes on a well-curated Instagram post instead of reaching out for a real friend. It can feel easier to chat via Messenger or DMs, where we can take as much time as we want to write and erase and rewrite and edit, and then we don't have to deal with any tough emotions in person if it doesn't land exactly how we intended it to. And we all know just how frustrating disagreements and misunderstandings can be over a screen, yet we shy away from addressing those things in person. With social media, we can curate a world that only validates and only encourages us, and any challenge or discomfort can be quickly plucked out of it. And when we can seemingly access any knowledge, any affirmation, any quick hit of dopamine that comes from an always available screen, why would we want to deal with the complexities and messiness of real people? In her book, Reclaiming Conversation, sociologist Sherry Turkle describes how our desire for control can start to overtake our desire for people. Why do we spend so much time messaging each other if we end up feeling less connected to each other? In the short term, online communication makes us feel more in charge of our time and self-presentation. If we text rather than talk, we can have each other in amounts that we can control. I call it the Goldilocks effect. We can't get enough of each other if we can have each other at a digital distance. Not too close, not too far, just right. We've been given more ways to communicate than ever, yet many of us exist instead in connected isolation, appearing to be surrounded by friends and happy experiences, but functionally alone and isolated. I know the cultural view of this is to think it's just kids and their screens these days, but the allure of technology to make us feel more connected, even when reality says something very different, crosses generations. Recently, I was at a department retreat for work, which is just a very long meeting held somewhere that's not in our building. And one of the professors in my department got caught watching football highlights while our department head was presenting because he forgot to turn his sound off. And we all laughed, obviously, but seriously, dude? Later that morning, we had a short break between presentations, and I turned to my table mates to chat, and literally every single other person at the table was immediately on their phones. And this wasn't all a bunch of young tech-obsessed people. I was the youngest person at the table, and I'm 30. And nor was it all introverts who didn't want to talk. These are some of the most socially gregarious and chatty people in our department. That's why I sat there, I wanted to talk to people. The desire to never be bored, to never have to take the risk of conversation that could potentially be awkward or hard, is strong among friends and colleagues across all ages and temperaments. And too often for us, technology, or at least how we've come to use it, acts as one of those cultural currents pulling us toward loneliness. We're made for people in a way that can't be replicated fully over a screen. We've been sold this idea that modern technology is either the answer to our loneliness or the sole cause of it. But I think either of these extremes is unhelpful. Many of us can sense that as connected as we may be on our devices, we aren't feeling the kind of deep belonging and care that comes with real friendship. And while it can be tempting to just shun technology entirely or give in to all of it, the reality is that technology is here and woven into our lives. There are real benefits of technology into our relationships, and it's unlikely that we're just going to be able to quit it cold turkey anyway. Instead, we need a winsome alternative, a way of being in the world and in relationship with each other that can be supported by technology without being taken over by it. And while the Bible doesn't specifically tell us how to use something like Facebook or Snapchat, it does offer us a lot of wisdom on the importance of in-person relationship. So much of the Bible is giving us a framework for how to be in relationship with one another. And over again within that, we see this emphasis on being together. As we've seen in the past couple weeks of this series, in Genesis 2, God is clear that it is not good for us to be alone, setting the foundation for our need for relationship. It is not good for us to do life on our own, and God created us to be in relationship with each other. Consider Deuteronomy 6, where Moses is reiterating God's law to the Israelites. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you are at home and when you are on the road, when you are going to bed and when you are getting up. The implication here is that you are with other people regularly, with your children repeating God's word, with others at home and on the road and throughout your day. And this isn't to say that we should never be alone or never use technology that allows us to communicate across distances. But there's clearly something important for us being physically with one another for significant amounts of time. In Paul's time, letters and the safe, fast transportation allowed by Rome's power and control was the advanced technology of today. And Paul absolutely made use of this particular communication technology, writing many of the letters we find in the New Testament. But even he who wrote all of these letters at a distance recognized the limitations of this kind of communication. He used his letters as an important tool to encourage, correct, and strengthen the churches he wrote to, but always with a desire for and movement towards in-person relationship. For example, we read in 1 Thessalonians 2 and 3, "As for us, brothers and sisters, when for a short time we were made orphans by being separated from you, in person, not in heart, we longed with great eagerness to see you face to face." And in chapter 3, "Timothy has just now come to us from you and has brought us the good news of your faith and love. He has told us that you always remember us kindly and long to see us just as we long to see you. For this reason, brothers and sisters, during all our distress and persecution, we have been encouraged about you through your faith. For now we live if you continue to stand firm in the Lord. How can we thank God enough for you in return for all the joy that we feel before our God because of you? Night and day we pray most earnestly that we may see you face to face and restore whatever is lacking in your faith." Or in Paul's letter to the Romans, "One of the things I always pray for is the opportunity, God willing, to come at last to see you. For I long to visit you so I can bring you some spiritual gift that will help you to grow strong in the Lord. When we get together, I want to encourage you in your faith, but I also want to be encouraged by yours." And while we can certainly offer some encouragement and wisdom at a distance, the foundation of our relationships requires bodily presence with one another. Across Scripture, we see this base assumption that we are with other people. We can't pray for each other via text, share a meal on Instagram, or experience the full joy of community and worship at a distance. And even in conflict, Jesus calls us to be with one another. So if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifice to God. Whether in encouragement or disagreement, to correct or to lift up, we are called as followers of Jesus to prioritize being together. And wherever technology encourages this is great and helpful, but if we are not careful, it can pull us through our most important relationships while fooling us into thinking that we are more connected and available than ever. When technology mediates our relationships, the question is not if technology is reshaping them, but how it is reshaping our relationships. In many ways, a screen can feel easier than another person. We can edit, we can avoid, we can retouch and filter. We never have to feel boredom or an awkward silence for more than a moment. But as Turkle puts it in Reclaiming Conversation, human relationships are rich, messy, and demanding. When we clean them up with technology, we move from conversation to the efficiencies of mere connection. I fear we forget the difference. And that is a crucial difference for our relational lives. And so we must put technology in its proper place. In his book, Made for People, Justin Whitmore Early compares communication technology, especially the use of social media, to snacking on processed foods. Now, cheddar and sour cream potato chips and fruit snacks, while delicious, are very much lacking in actual nutritional value. And just like these foods give us this fleeting feeling of being full while leaving us unnourished, Technology can briefly give us the feeling of being known while leaving us functionally isolated. The promise of social media is to be fully seen and fully liked, but the promise of covenant friendship is to be fully known and fully loved. Simply being seen and accumulating likes can feel like being known and loved in the short term, but much like a diet of only processed foods, we'll find our short-term gratification give way to unhealth and dissatisfaction in the long run. Technology can and should support our friendships, but we have to treat it as the snack that it is, something that can bridge us to the next meal or a fun indulgence, but not a replacement for a nourishing meal of real relationship. Many little snacks and sips of technological connection will not add up to something substantial and may actually just keep us from engaging in relational contexts that would truly satisfy us. And now, the answer to this isn't just to avoid technology altogether. Creating and using technology are not bad things. God creates, and as we are made in the image of our Creator God, we have a healthy desire to create and make new things as well. And in that way, our creation of new ways to connect and share isn't a bad thing. It's simply an outpouring of a good impulse to create. But because we are also fallen, we have to examine the purpose behind what we create. Because everything has a purpose or an end goal, and those purposes are not always meant for our good and flourishing. Some technology is really just designed to keep you using it and making money for the company that owns it. And that doesn't mean that we should disengage from any use of technology, but instead learn how to use it in relationally healthy ways that are in line with what they are made for. Again, from early, the internet and smartphones are fantastic for connections, communication, and knowledge. But connections are not friends. Communication is not intimacy, and knowledge is not wisdom. Too often, we trade real conversation and relationship for mere connection via a screen. And this might feel safer, less vulnerable, less prone to disappointing us. But we are very much on the losing end of that trade. The risks we take in choosing deep friendship are exactly what make it so worthwhile. Snacking for relational connection is never going to satisfy us. We need the main course of real relationship built with others on during quality time together. Those interactions via technology, whether it's a text or sharing a meme or a FaceTime call, can certainly be used to bridge us to the next relational meal. But if we use it to replace the nourishment of community and friendship, we will starve ourselves relationally. We were made for people. We should throw off all uses of technology that distract us from being fully known and fully loved by friends, and embrace all uses that help with that. And with this in mind, what might be some healthy habits of technology for you in your particular context? And I want to bring up two, I think, key guidelines as we consider this. First, use things for what they are made for. Texting and social media are good for short connections to help you be known, but they're not a good substitute for in-person communication. And this kind of messaging can be great for logistics and sharing some updates, but there's a hard limit on the love that you can show in this format. When our boys were born, Tyler and I used a Facebook Messenger group to update our family and friends quickly, which is great as a short-term way to share good news and photos of our new babies. But messaging pictures and congratulations in a group chat is worlds away from how special it was to have friends and family visit us in the hospital or bring us a meal in those early days at home. A text just can't do that. A text also can't convey tone, which makes it very, very easy to be misunderstood when we try to use it for more than just sharing information. Messaging someone cannot replace a heart-to-heart over coffee or a real apology for how we've hurt someone or fill in for an honest conversation with a friend who needs encouragement or correction or both. And with social media, remember that it's a marketing tool that you can share ideas on. That is its purpose. And it's not a space for true vulnerability or connection. The goal of social media platforms is to keep you on them and make money for the companies that own them. The depth and richness of your relationships makes absolutely no difference for their bottom line. And if we're going to engage with social media, we need to be very clear-eyed about that reality. Do not waste your capacity for vulnerability on social media. Instead, embrace the real relational intimacy of in-person friendship, where you can't control the way you look when you cry. You can't filter out the messy house of your background. You can't reword things 1 million times before saying them, and you can't edit them once they're said. That unvarnished danger is what makes friendship so messy and so incredible. Only in the in-person world of risk do we have the capacity for real vulnerability and real love. And in using something like a phone call or a video chat, we have the advantages of more instant communication where you can get some sense of tone or even body language. But even these should be thought of as an aid and an encouragement to friendship rather than the primary way that we do conversation. And of course, there's relationships and seasons where this is the primary way you can maintain relationship. And if it's between FaceTime or a text thread, the option where you can see each other's faces and hear each other's voices is going to be the one that's more relationally satisfying. My sister lives in Flagstaff, and while texting might be more convenient for both of us, I know I feel more connected to her and aware of how she's doing when we regularly talk on the phone or video chat. But even then, if I have the chance to go spend quality time with my sister in person, I'm going to take it. Because that time that we get chatting in the car, going to pick up Dutch Bros together is always better, though I'm grateful for how technology helps us stay connected in between those opportunities. Interactions via technology are the snack that can get us to that next meal, not the meal itself. And in addition to using things for what they were made for, we have to carefully consider that if any particular use of technology is encouraging us toward or away from in-person relationship. Does this group chat I'm in facilitate hanging out more by giving my friend group a place to plan and see who's available? Or is it just a place where we share memes without ever going deeper? Is having my phone on the table keeping me distracted from the people I want to grow in relationship with? Are the accounts that I'm following giving life, or are they keeping me unfocused, upset, and defensive in my real life conversations? And personally, I've been on a journey towards disconnecting from my phone in different ways over the last several years. And a thing that I've discovered is that as you choose to consistently be off your phone and available for conversation, it becomes very disorienting just how much everyone is connected to their phones. It can often feel like I've come up for air just to see that everyone else is holding their heads underwater. And I don't say this as a judgment or to say that I'm so much better at this. I'm certainly not. But I hope that we can all start to see how we get to choose differently in how technology is mediating our relationships. We can't live on snacks alone, and we don't have to. We can choose to show up and enjoy the true meal of friendship with all of its complexity and richness. And if you need a place to start here, I highly suggest doing a screen time audit. Just seeing how much time you're spending on different apps or using kind of different modalities of communication. And smartphones have made this really easy. Often you can go in your settings, there's apps that tell you this. And you can even integrate this with the time audit that Megan Miller suggested last week and see where your screen time might be replacing people time or time with God. And beyond just seeing where you spend that time on screens, try to observe your patterns here. Do you jump on the phone as soon as you sit down in class, making it so you can avoid talking to anybody? When you're feeling anxious, do you start scrolling? I know for a long time, if I found myself overwhelmed in any context, I would find myself suddenly on Instagram, trying to distract myself, but rarely feeling any better. And once we see these patterns, it's much easier to interrupt them and replace them with something that is more relationally nourishing. And it rarely, if ever, works to just tell ourselves to just stop doing something. We have to replace it with different concrete action. If I want to connect more with my coworkers, for example, I might leave my phone in my office and go to our department's weekly coffee hour, making myself available for conversation, even if it might feel awkward or inconvenient at first. I can't just hope that that connection will fall into my lap. I have to choose to interrupt my usual patterns that would lead me to loneliness and isolation and choose something different, even if it's uncomfortable. And as much as possible, try to keep technology as a tool to facilitate in-person interaction. Texting is a great way to plan for a hangout, but it's a poor substitute for actually talking with someone. Social media can offer us interesting snippets, but if you really want to know how someone is doing, you have to spend time with them and ask them. Wherever you can, use tech as a jumping off point for in-person relationships rather than as a replacement or a distraction from them. One of the most active group chats I'm in is with my women's small group that meets once a week in one another's homes. And throughout the week in this chat, we send funny videos, we ask for parent advice or like recommendations for a termite guy, we're sharing prayer requests and struggles and so much more. But the most important conversation that we have every week starts with, who's up for meeting this week and who's going to host? At this point, this group has been meeting in some form for over a decade. And as we've all graduated, gotten jobs, gotten married, and had kids, obviously the dynamics and logistics of our group have had to change significantly. But our commitment to getting together consistently has remained. And I'm grateful for the ways that technology has helped our group, whether it's in this group chat or like Venmoing each other for Starbucks or passing along a helpful podcast episode. But all of that is built upon the real relationship that has been nurtured by years of meeting together in person, by sharing life, having dinner together, helping with each other's kids, hugging and comforting one another in a tough season, and a million other little acts of kindness that can only be done when you're in deep, consistent, and in-person relationship with others. And finally, I encourage you to use what is one of our oldest technologies and gather around a fire with others. Now, you might be thinking a literal fire when it's over 90 degrees outside sounds terrible, although that season is coming. But there's a reason that gathering around like a bonfire or a cozy fireplace just hits differently for us. We're drawn to places of warmth and community, a space where we can be known and share stories and life together. And even if your fire isn't literal, what is a space that you can choose to gather with others in person and grow closer to them? Maybe that's a meal. Maybe that's a craft night. Maybe it's just like a coffee in the backyard with a few friends. But no matter what the specifics are, choose to create or join in a context that encourages us to gather and to be together. Because whatever it is, we can show up and be with people and push back against that current of loneliness. And right now, my husband and I are in the season of raising a 3-year-old. And one of the joys and challenges of having a toddler is that they act as a mirror for all of your habits. And it's not very hard to see exactly how you interact with technology when they copy everything you do. So in that way, when I see Joe pick up our phones and pretend to just start scrolling through it or play games on it, I wince and kind of rethink my life choices a bit. But sometimes we get to see something really cool. A couple weeks ago after church, I wanted to drop something off in my office, so I pushed our giant double stroller with both boys from here at McClellan Park all the way over to the psychology building, only to find that my cat card access that I would need to use on the weekend was not working, so we were very stuck outside. And of course, it was a million degrees outside, and Tyler was going to be a bit before he could pick us up. So I pushed us over to the shade, and I apologized to Joe that we were going to be stuck outside, and he wasn't going to get to see Mom's office this time. His response was to pretend to call Jude, his best toddler bud in the whole world, and ask him to come help us open the door. I could hear him from the front of the stroller going, Jude, you come help my mom? You come help open the door for us? Before hanging up his pretend phone and reassuring me that Jude was on his way to come help. And it was so cute, even though I kind of doubt a 3-year-old's ability to fix my building access. I don't know why. But I was much more excited to see Joe starting to see the value of community. His response when we had a problem was to reach out to a friend for help, a friend that he sees regularly and trusts to be there for him. Technology isn't going anywhere, but put into its proper place, it can be such a powerful tool for how we deepen relationships and be there for one another. It's great that we can call our friends, but the far greater thing is that they show up for us when we call, and that we can do the same for them. Let's choose to show up. Please pray with me. God, we thank you so much, both for the gift of technology and the gift of the wisdom that you give us through your word and through your community and how to use it well, Lord. I pray that we are able to show up for one another, that we are able to use the tools that you've given us in such a way that it broadens our relationships and deepens them with other people, God, and doesn't act as a replacement or a distraction from them. Help us to go deeper with God. Help us throw off all things that distract us from deeper relationship with you and with the people you put on around us, and help us to pick up all the tools that will help us to deepen those same relationships. We thank you so much, Lord, for our friends, for our community, for the people you put around us to help remind us of your love and help us show that love to others. We thank you, God, in your Son's name. Amen.
Thank you for joining the Damascus Road podcast. Our mission is to follow Jesus together by being with God, loving everyone, transforming people, developing leaders, growing new ministries, and changing the world. You can find out more about us online at DamascusRoadTucson.com.